Kash Patel didn't walk onto the view. He entered like a man who'd been here before, battle-tested and utterly unshaken. A former national security advisor, the mind behind the Nunes memo that once rocked Capitol Hill, and now the FBI director, Patel's presence wasn't just controversial, it was symbolic. To his supporters, he's the insider who turned whistleblower, unafraid to rip back the curtain on entrenched systems. To critics, he's a dangerous disruptor, icy, relentless, and willing to bulldoze long-standing norms. That day, The View wasn't just a daytime talk show, it was a stage dressed like a courtroom, engineered for confrontation. Behind the scenes, a producer muttered into the headset, "Let him bury himself." On set, the hosts took their places like seasoned duelists. Whoopi Goldberg, serene, calculating. Joy Behar, grinning like someone who already knew where the knives were hidden. Sunny Hostin, tight as a drawn bowstring, ready to deliver a legal zinger with precision. The studio lights dimmed slightly. The crowd was hushed, not cheering, but watching, unsure whether this would be a routine interview or a primetime political dismantling. Then he appeared. Kash Patel, dressed in a subdued navy suit with a plain tie. No frills, no flash. He walked with the quiet confidence of a defense attorney entering a courtroom where the verdict had already been written in his favor. As he surveyed the crowd, a few scattered claps broke the silence, laced with murmurs. "Trump's guy," they whispered. Joy arched an eyebrow. Whoopi didn't even bother with a forced smile. They thought they had him boxed in. They thought the script was theirs. But within minutes, Patel delivered a single, razor-sharp line, quiet, composed, but devastating. It didn't come with fire. It came with precision. And just like that, the tone of the show flipped. For the first time in years, The View lost control of its own narrative on the very stage built to command it. Before we dive deeper into the moment that unraveled the segment, don't forget to subscribe and let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Back on the set, Whoopi regained her composure and began with practiced warmth, masking the sharpness in her tone. "Welcome to The View. Today's conversation is one you won't want to miss. Please welcome our guest, former National Security Advisor, FBI Director, and author of Government Gangsters, Mr. Kash Patel." The audience clapped again, this time more rhythmically but still restrained. Their applause wasn't purely admiration, it was curiosity, suspicion, maybe even challenge. Patel gave a polite nod, a faint smile tugging at his lips. But behind the smile, his eyes were alert, reading the room like a field report. "Thank you for having me," he said calmly. "I'm here for a real conversation." Just a few seconds, but everything shifted. It wasn't the words. It was how he said them. No faux humility, no nervous laughter. Kash Patel didn't come to play guest. He came to rewrite the script. Then came the first strike. Whoopi leaned forward, her tone firm. "Kash, you've made headlines for suggesting that journalists should face prosecution over what you label as misinformation during elections. Is this really about protecting democracy, or is it about silencing dissent?" The audience froze. It was the shot they were waiting for. But Patel didn't flinch. Leaning in slightly, eyes locked on Whoopi, he responded, "Prosecution isn't about silencing voices. It's about protecting truth. When media platforms knowingly spread false narratives that destabilize democratic processes, that's not journalism. It's malpractice. My job is to enforce the law, regardless of who it implicates." Before the words could settle, Sunny Hostin jumped in, sharp, focused, ready to challenge him on legal grounds. "But Mr. Patel," Sunny Hostin interjected sharply, "who gets to decide what's false? You as FBI director? That sounds dangerously close to policing the press. And the First Amendment doesn't support that." Kash Patel didn't blink. He leaned in, meeting her gaze with a calm certainty. "You're right. The First Amendment is foundational," he began evenly, "but it doesn't protect fraud. If a media outlet fabricates evidence to defame someone or sow chaos during an election, that crosses the line. I'm not talking about opinions or tough articles. I'm talking about criminal manipulation disguised as journalism." There was a ripple in the audience. A few claps, some murmurs. People were listening more closely now. Joy Behar, her expression tinged with disdain, cut in with a biting grin. "You say it's about the law, but it sure sounds like you want to turn the FBI into a media police force, jailing reporters for criticizing your administration. What kind of justice is that?" Patel turned to her, expression unshaken and voice smooth as steel. "Miss Behar," he said, "criticism is the heart of democracy. I'm not going after dissent. But when people abuse media power to manipulate facts, incite instability, or disrupt elections, they should be held accountable. Justice doesn't choose sides. And neither do I. The room buzzed. Some audience members nodded in agreement. Others sat with furrowed brows. Then Ana Navarro jumped in, voice sharp with skepticism. You sound fair. But let's be real, you're Trump's guy. You advise Truth Social. How can we possibly believe your FBI won't target outlets critical of him? Patel offered a faint smile, not to charm, but to stay in control. Miss Navarro, he replied, the FBI is not my personal weapon. Every case will be based on hard evidence, subject to court review. I don't keep an enemies list. I follow the law. Next came Alyssa Farah Griffin, offering a more tempered but pointed question. Kash, I understand your focus on accountability. But the phrase prosecuting journalists frightens people. Isn't your rhetoric damaging the public's trust in the FBI? Patel nodded slightly, acknowledging her point. I understand the concern. And I'm not here to create fear, he said. But public trust isn't built by ignoring abuse. If a media outlet weaponizes its platform to deceive or interfere with elections, we must act. Real journalists, those who pursue truth, are vital to democracy. But manipulators in disguise? There's something else entirely. A wave of applause broke out, louder, more confident than before. The producers behind the scenes exchanged glances. The audience was shifting. Sunny Hostin pressed on, sensing her grip slipping. You talk about truth, but didn't you once promote theories like Italy-gate? How do we trust you to guard the truth now? Patel didn't flinch. Miss Hostin, I'm not here to relitigate old claims. I'm here to talk about accountability moving forward. If a media outlet breaks the law and there's evidence, they'll be investigated. If not, they won't. It's that simple. No politics. Just transparency. Applause rang out again, this time louder, more sustained. A few audience members even stood. From the back, a voice shouted, Keep going, Kash. Joy Behar visibly faltered, thumbing through her note cards, clearly unsettled. Whoopi Goldberg leaned forward, ready to step in, but the moment was slipping. The audience was tilting toward Patel. He didn't gloat. He simply sat there, calm, composed, hands resting lightly on the chair, surveying the panel like a seasoned strategist awaiting the next move. The hosts huddled with their eyes, no longer brimming with confidence. They had expected him to stumble on the topic of media prosecution. Instead, he'd taken control. Then Alyssa Farah Griffin, perhaps the only one with real insight into the Trump administration, cut to the heart of it. You were one of President Trump's closest advisors. You helped author the Nunes memo. You worked with Truth Social. How can Americans trust you'll act independently and not as Trump's enforcer? The room fell silent. Patel leaned in slightly, voice measured and direct. Miss Griffin, I don't hide my past. I worked with President Trump because I believed in his policies, national security, transparency, reform. But the FBI is not a weapon for anyone, not even him. My duty is to the Constitution and to the American people. Period. Joy Behar fired back immediately, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Oh, really? You published a children's book calling Trump King Donald. That's not independence, that's worship. Patel didn't flinch. He even allowed a half-smile. The book was a satirical children's tale, not a policy manual, he replied. But if we're talking loyalty, yes, I'm loyal. Not to a man, but to the Constitution. I fought for reform. I fought against corruption. That doesn't disqualify me. It defines me. Again, the crowd responded, some clapping, others murmuring. Ana Navarro tried one more time to reframe him as biased. You advise Trump media. How do we know your FBI won't become an arm of Truth Social, silencing political opponents? Patel's expression didn't change. Miss Navarro, I left that role to return to national service. The FBI doesn't respond to tweets or media narratives. It responds to facts, evidence, and law. And if someone, anyone, breaks the law, they'll face consequences. That's how justice works. Another round of applause erupted, louder than ever. Then came the final attempt. Sunny Hostin, with one last shot. You once called FBI agents government gangsters for investigating Trump. That's not accountability, that's attacking law enforcement. Will you apologize for those words? Patel paused, looked directly at her, and answered without blinking. Miss Hostin, I stand by that statement. When government officials abuse power to target political candidates without solid evidence, that's corruption. And I'll call it out every time. I'm not defending Trump. I'm defending every American's right to a fair system. Applause surged strong, sustained, even emotional. The camera panned across the audience, nodding heads, standing figures, clapping hands. Whoopi Goldberg, sensing the audience had slipped from their grasp, leaned in one last time. Kash, I hear you. But your deep ties to Trump still make people wary. How do you convince critics you're neutral? Patel's voice dropped to a quiet, steady pitch. Miss Goldberg, I'm not here to win popularity contests. I'm here to uphold the law. Neutrality doesn't mean indecision. It means putting justice above politics. When I investigate, there are no Trump allies or enemies, only evidence and truth. Silence followed, then one final wave of applause. Kash Patel hadn't just survived the view. He had turned the table. And for a moment, the stage no longer belonged to the hosts. It belonged to the man they thought they had cornered. Applause thundered through the studio once more, longer, louder, more spirited. From the audience, voices rang out. That's right, someone shouted. Joy Behar, clearly irritated, interjected. You've called Trump's opponents the deep state. That's not unity, it's division. Patel turned toward her, his tone even, unwavering. Miss Behar, I use the term deep state to describe individuals who exploit their positions to manipulate systems, regardless of who they target. Unity doesn't mean agreement. It means mutual respect for truth. And I won't stop pursuing that truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Ana Navarro leaned forward quickly, pressing the line of attack. Would you investigate Trump if credible evidence came forward, or just his opponents? Patel didn't pause. Miss Navarro, if there's evidence, whether it implicates the president or a private citizen, they'll be investigated. No exceptions. The law applies to everyone. He sat still, composed, as if every question had been anticipated. The hosts exchanged glances. Joy tapped the table. Sunny shook her head. The moment they thought would undo him, his loyalty to Trump, was being turned into a platform, and the audience was responding. Anna pivoted sharply. Mr. Patel, you've signed books with the phrase WLUG1WGA, a QAnon slogan. You've attended events like the Reawaken America Tour, known for spreading conspiracy theories. How can Americans trust an FBI director tied to extremist movements? Patel met her gaze, calm and direct. Miss Navarro, I don't control how people interpret a book signing. That phrase was requested by a fan. It wasn't a political endorsement. I attend events across the spectrum to listen and understand, not to align. My duty at the FBI is to pursue facts, not rumors, not narratives. Anna wasn't satisfied. But QAnon has been labeled a domestic threat by your own agency. By appearing at their events, aren't you enabling them? Patel offered a faint, controlled smile. I enable no one. As a lawyer and public servant, I believe in hearing all sides, even those I disagree with. That's how you understand what drives people. If QAnon or any group breaks the law, they'll be investigated. Period. Sonny Hostin jumped in, tone sharp. You talk about facts, but you once backed the Italy Gate theory about the 2020 election, an idea the FBI has debunked. How do you reconcile that with your role? Patel didn't flinch. Miss Hostin, I never endorsed Italy Gate. I raised questions, as any good investigator would when something seems suspicious. But at the FBI, we don't chase theories, we chase evidence. No evidence, no case. That's how I lead. Applause broke out again, stronger now. A voice called out, let him speak. Joy couldn't hold back. You sound great, Kash. But showing up at events where people chant, defund the FBI, and now you lead it? That's hypocrisy. Patel turned to her. Miss Behar, I don't attend events to please crowds. I go to understand concerns, especially from those who distrust the system. If we want to protect the public, we have to understand their fears. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to do what's right. Alyssa Farrah Griffin spoke up next, keeping her tone measured. Kash, I respect the idea of listening, but even indirect links to QAnon erode public trust. What are you doing to prove your independence? Patel nodded, then leaned in slightly. Miss Griffin, trust isn't earned through distancing, it's earned through action. Under my leadership, the FBI will investigate any threat, from any group, based solely on facts. I serve no movement. My loyalty is to the Constitution and to the people. The response hit like a hammer. Applause exploded. Some audience members jumped to their feet, hands raised in applause. In the control room, a producer signaled, cut. But the director sat frozen, watching. Whoopi Goldberg leaned forward, trying to wrest back control. You say you're nonpartisan, but your presence at these events and past statements raise real concern. Isn't the FBI being politicized under your leadership? Patel's voice cut through the noise like steel. Miss Goldberg, politicization happens when we let emotion override evidence. I don't pick sides. I serve the law. And if protecting the country means listening to uncomfortable voices, then I'll listen. Because national security doesn't care about slogans. It demands truth. Another surge of applause rocked the room. Sonny Hostin, almost desperate to break the wave, pressed on. So if QAnon really is a threat, will you investigate them fully and objectively? Patel didn't hesitate. Absolutely. If QAnon or any group breaks the law, we will investigate. No special treatment. No bias. No exceptions. My loyalty is to the truth, not a tribe. The studio roared. Nearly half the audience rose to their feet. Some formed heart signs with their hands. The applause was relentless. The control room scrambled. On the studio floor, Kash Patel remained calm, centered amid the chaos. Then came the final blow, Sonny again, like a prosecutor going for the jugular. You say you serve the people, but you once called for shutting down the FBI headquarters and purging so-called deep state actors. Isn't that just revenge for those who investigated Trump? The studio fell dead silent. Patel leaned forward. His hands were clasped gently. His voice was deliberate and steady. Miss Hostin, reform isn't revenge. It's responsibility. When the most powerful law enforcement agency in the country is accused of political bias, we can't look away. Closing the headquarters isn't destruction. It's a symbol. A message that the era of secrecy and favoritism must end. You can't rebuild trust on a broken foundation. For a moment, no one spoke. Then clap, clap, clap. A slow, deliberate applause began. It spread, louder and steadier than before. Sonny fired again. A symbol? Sounds more like you want to dismantle the FBI. Purging the deep state. That's just code for firing anyone who disagrees with Trump, isn't it? Patel shook his head slightly. Miss Hostin, the deep state isn't a party affiliation. It's a pattern of abuse. Reform means rooting out misconduct, not political differences. Anyone who breaks the law must go. Those who serve with integrity, we need them to restore what's been lost. The audience stirred again. Clapping. Murmurs of agreement. Joy Behar launched a final jab. You called FBI officials gangsters for doing their jobs. You're undermining the very agency you now lead. Patel met her gaze one last time. Miss Behar, I call misconduct what it is. If someone uses their badge to target any citizen, Trump or not, without real evidence, that's not justice. That's corruption. Reform doesn't weaken the FBI. It protects it. The applause rolled in again, steady and unyielding. Patel sat back, silent. His message had landed. The studio, once a battlefield, was now filled with echoing support. He didn't have to say another word. He was no longer on the defensive. He had seized the moment. Applause erupted again, louder, more sustained. Some audience members were already on their feet, cheering. Anna Navarro, refusing to let Kash Patel gain momentum, fired back with pointed urgency. Mr. Patel, shutting down the FBI headquarters, the symbolic heart of federal law enforcement, isn't reform. It's extreme. Isn't that more likely to damage public trust than rebuild it? Patel met her gaze without flinching. Miss Navarro, sometimes you have to dismantle outdated monuments to build something better. That building still bears the name of J. Edgar Hoover, a man whose legacy includes decades of surveillance abuse. Moving the bureau says, the people come before the past. Trust isn't built from bricks and walls, it's built through action. Alyssa Farah Griffin, composed but skeptical, leaned forward, her voice soft yet precise. Kash, I understand your passion for reform, but sweeping change can't be imposed. It needs buy-in. How do you convince the public you're not turning the FBI into a political weapon? Patel's tone was steady, every syllable deliberate. Miss Griffin, I won't chase popularity. I'll earn trust through transparency. Every change will be public, explained with evidence, and reviewed independently. If Americans see the FBI applying law fairly, without fear or favor, they'll believe in it, whether they support me or not. The applause came again, this time louder and longer. Some in the crowd shouted, "Keep going, Kash." The room was shifting, leaning in his direction. Sensing the tide, Whoopi Goldberg jumped in, cutting sharply. Mr. Patel, you talk about transparency, but you've accused the FBI of bias in the past. How do we know this isn't just a vendetta dressed up as reform? Patel turned to her, his expression unshaken. Miss Goldberg, grudges have no place in justice. I'm not here for payback. I want an FBI that protects everyone, including those who oppose me. If anyone is investigated, It will be based on hard evidence, not ideology. A wave of cheers rolled through the audience. Applause, whistles, even the scrape of chairs as people stood. "You're doing the right thing, Kash," someone called out. Sonny Hostin, eyes narrowing, pressed in with urgency. "And what happens to agents who resist your reforms? Do you fire them just to stay in control?" Patel didn't miss a beat. "I don't need agreement. I need integrity. If agents disagree but follow the law, they stay. If they break it, hide truth, or abuse power, they go. That's not control. That's accountability." The studio exploded with standing ovations. The energy was electric. In the control room, a producer signaled to cut, but the director stayed frozen, watching the moment unfold. Desperate to regain momentum, Hostin struck again. "Mr. Patel, we've heard you speak about prosecuting the press, your loyalty to Trump, ties to QAnon, reforming the Bureau, but it all circles back to one question. How do we know you're not Trump's enforcer? Are you turning the FBI into a political weapon?" Patel leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. His voice was low, clear, almost thunderous. "Miss Hostin, when media and officials crown themselves as the final arbiters of justice, they silence the people. I'm not here for Trump. I'm here to defend every American's right to live in a country where truth isn't manipulated for power." The crowd roared. Applause echoed across the studio. Patel's tone stayed composed, his presence resolute. Justice begins with listening, not condemning. That's how trust is built. The producers could barely hear their earpieces. Whoopi, visibly uneasy, tried to pivot. "Kash, you say you value listening, but your rhetoric, your reforms, your treatment of the press, it sounds like control, not protection. Don't you see that?" Patel faced her directly, his reply measured and unshaken. "Miss Goldberg, control is silencing people. I want Americans to speak, so long as they speak the truth. Under my watch, the FBI won't target views. It will pursue illegal actions. That's the line. And it's crystal clear." The crowd erupted again. Joy Behar jumped in, her voice rising in frustration. "You talk like a patriot, but you've called Trump's critics enemies. That's not unifying. That's divisive." Patel turned to her, gaze unwavering. "Miss Behar, enemies aren't those who disagree. Enemies are those who abuse their positions to twist truth and erode public trust. I'm not dividing this country. I'm naming the problem. And if truth makes someone uncomfortable, that's on them, not me." The room ignited. Cheers filled the air. An audience member stood and yelled, "Tell it like it is, Kash." Ana Navarro, trying to steer the moment back, cut in with sharp intensity. "You say you're about truth, but you've pushed conspiracy theories, Italy Gate, the deep state. How do we know you won't keep using the FBI to chase fiction?" Patel didn't blink. "Miss Navarro, my FBI won't chase conspiracies. We chase evidence. I ask tough questions. That's what lawyers do. But when I wear the badge, I follow one rule. Truth doesn't need decoration. It stands on its own." The audience erupted, a tidal wave of applause. Many stood with arms raised, as if at a rally. Alyssa Farah Griffin, keeping her tone composed, tried one last time to bring the conversation back to center. "Kash," the applause roared, louder than ever. Audience members rose, cheering with unrestrained energy. Ana Navarro's voice sliced through the noise, unwilling to let the moment slip. "Mr. Patel, you speak of truth, but your language, words like purge and prosecute, makes people fear you're targeting anyone outside of Trump's circle. What will you do to ease that fear?" Patel nodded slightly, as if he'd been waiting for the question all along. His voice dropped to a calm, steady tone, but its weight hushed the room. "I'm not here to reassure everyone. I'm here to do what's right. Every reform I pursue will be public. Every investigation grounded in evidence, under scrutiny for all to see. Anyone worried I'm playing politics, look at the record. It will speak louder than I ever could." The audience erupted again, thunderous applause, some shouting. "Kash! Kash!" Sonny Hostin leaned in, one last attempt to regain control. Her voice urgent, cutting. "So do you admit that your connection to QAnon, your aggressive reforms, have helped erode trust in the FBI?" Patel didn't blink. His response came swift and deliberate, words honed by experience. "Miss Hostin, trust doesn't crumble because people ask questions. It crumbles when leaders hide answers. I don't divide, I confront. And if the truth makes someone uncomfortable, they need to ask themselves, are they afraid of the truth or of losing power?" There was no hesitation this time. The crowd exploded. Cheers, chants, applause. At the host table, the dynamic shifted. The panel no longer looked like seasoned interrogators. They looked like people struggling to reclaim the narrative. Whoopi Goldberg smoothed her hair, hiding the tension. Sunny bit her lip. Joy tossed her cue cards to the table. Anna and Alyssa exchanged whispers behind forced expressions. They had hoped Patel would stumble under the weight of their questioning. Instead, he stood taller. His words hadn't just defended his position, they had challenged the entire system. What followed wasn't applause for agreement. It was applause for conviction, for clarity, for the courage to say what many felt but hadn't dared to voice. Patel didn't gloat. He didn't even smile. He sat still, composed, his silence carrying more force than another speech could. In the control room, the producer gestured frantically, "Wrap it." But the director didn't move. He was watching something rare, not a TV segment, but a moment, a shift. Whoopi leaned forward with a tight smile. "We want to thank Mr. Kash Patel for joining us today. It seems we had a conversation that went beyond expectations." Joy gave a nod, her usual smirk absent. Sunny leaned back, arms crossed. Anna and Alyssa simply nodded, acknowledging what had just happened. Patel stood, offered a respectful nod to the panel, and left the stage. No exit remarks. No celebration. Just a quiet walk-off screen. The applause followed him. Not the applause of victory, but of something deeper. Closure. Impact. Authenticity. The studio lights dimmed. Text on screen. "The View will return next week." But the audience wouldn't forget. And neither would the millions watching from home. That one line stayed with them. If the truth makes someone uncomfortable, they should ask themselves, are they afraid of the truth or of losing power? In that moment, it became clear Kash Patel hadn't come to The View for an interview. He came to change the game. As the studio emptied and the applause finally faded, the energy lingered. A ripple through the audience, a quiet sense that they had witnessed something unusual, something real. By the time the episode aired nationwide, the internet was already ablaze. The hashtag Kash on The View shot to the top of trending charts. Clips of Patel's strongest moments spread like wildfire. One 30-second clip, his answer on power versus truth, surpassed 5 million views by midnight. Comment sections divided like tectonic plates. "I don't support Trump, but Patel made sense." "The media shouldn't control the narrative," one post read. "He's dangerous." "Just a smooth-talking populist masking authoritarian ambition," argued another. Forums lit up. Commentators debated. Supporters hailed him as a truth-teller taking on media bias. Critics warned of politicizing law enforcement. But both camps agreed. Patel had seized the stage. The press piled on. Headlines ranged from admiration to alarm. Patel turns The View into a tribunal and wins the crowd. FBI director's dangerous rhetoric echoes on national TV. Every major outlet analyzed his body language, his restraint, his rhetoric. Joy Behar's visible frustration. Whoopi's faltering control. The dramatic silence Sunny faced after her final question. The View's official X account posted a single line. "Thank you to Kash Patel for a lively discussion." The post was buried beneath thousands of comments, supporters cheering his composure, critics accusing the host of being unprepared, others simply stunned by the shift in tone. A production insider leaked to reporters. Joy walked off saying, "He's too slick." Sunny didn't speak. Whoopi just whispered, "We underestimated him." And Patel? He said nothing. No tweets. No interviews. No follow-ups. He simply returned to his duties, his silence speaking louder than any soundbite. It wasn't just a media moment. It was a challenge. A declaration. In a political landscape oversaturated with noise, Kash Patel had done the unthinkable. He said less, meant more, and let the silence deliver the aftershock. The story didn't end when the credits rolled. It started. Because in an era where justice, media, and truth are battlegrounds, one man showed what it looks like to stand up, say your piece, and walk away, leaving the system to reckon with the echo. This story captures a powerful moment where one individual, facing intense scrutiny, earned unexpected support, not through theatrics, but through clarity, sincerity, and unwavering composure. From the audience rising to cheer, to the visible discomfort on the host's faces, and the explosion of the hashtag Kash on The View across social media, one thing was undeniable: speaking the truth with conviction, even in a hostile environment, still holds power. What made it even more striking was what followed. Silence. Patel didn't tour talk shows or issue tweets. He let his words do the work. That choice alone sent a message. Real impact doesn't come from noise, but from meaning. In a divided America, where media narratives and social platforms often shape perception, this story reminds us of a deeper truth. Each of us has a responsibility to speak not for applause, but for principle. Take inspiration from Patel, not because of politics, but because of courage. He faced accusations, including ties to QAnon, not with anger, but with a call for dialogue. He didn't fold under pressure. He leaned into it. Let that be a lesson. Don't let the fear of labels or backlash silence your voice. Question. Listen. Respond with clarity, not contempt. And when you speak, mean it. Most importantly, live like Patel did after the cameras stopped, letting your words and actions speak for you. Not through arguments or online battles, but through consistency, integrity, and truth. In everyday life, that looks like this. Engage in honest conversations. Listen to people you disagree with. Stand for what you believe, even if you stand alone. Thank you for watching, and if you want to see more moments like Kash Patel's defining appearance on The View, don't forget to subscribe and stay with us. We bring you real stories, powerful voices, and moments that matter. See you in the next inspiring story.